I'm also simultaneously thinking a lot about impermanence. I've been maybe watching too many Disney Star Wars shows, and I've been thinking too much about the Jedi and all these things. But
Welcome to the Enterprise Intelligence Podcast with CEO Shiny Docs Jason Cassidy and VP Customer Success Davey Slimman. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Doing very well. It's summer. It's nice. It's tougher to coordinate things as people are with end of quarters and people in and out of the office. But I'm glad that we're back to it.
Yeah, we've definitely hit that time of year where kind of every second email that goes out gets a, "Oh, you missed me. I'm out of the office," or what have you. And I know you and I have talked about this before in the past, Jason, but I've been a long believer in kind of folks being realistic about the year. People think that it's a 12-month year where you can get 12 months worth of IT projects in. And it's like, no, it's kind of like a 9-month year in terms of IT projects. And this is the sort of July, August timeframe, at least in North America, is an interesting time because you have a lot of people that view this as, oh, this is a great time to get things done, and this is perfect. It's quieter, and we can get a lot accomplished. But simultaneously, you've got half the people around to do the work. It's like, I wanted to do this, but Joe was out, or Sally was out, or whatever. So I always find this time of year kind of interesting from that perspective. So, you know.
Yeah, oh for sure. And it's when you put in, because Canada Day is very close to Independence Day, so that week is always a write-off as far as people in and out of offices. Obviously, Thanksgiving and Christmas time. So there are, in February just being such a tight month, in having our what is it? It's Family Day now that they poked into February. Would have much rather had an extra stat holiday in June rather than tightening up February even more, but fine.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, especially especially in our part of the world where an extra day in the summer is probably a little nicer than one in late February. Yeah, thanks a lot. It's minus 40 and I get to sit around at home by myself,
Yeah. So that's okay. We sound negative.
Yeah.
We're positive.
We'll take what we can get, right? So
Exactly. Yeah. So this week it is, as I was scouring through like tech news and things related to information management, and others that we generally touch on, I didn't notice what was there as much as what was not there right now. And I'm going to explain that. Is that so when do you sell your stocks? If you're somebody who's like a day trader, you sell it at maximum positivity when everybody's getting in and everybody thinks everything's great. That's a good sign that prices are going to like it's like the things have peaked. Okay. Everybody's already on the trolley in that. So you got to watch when it's time to sell at that point. And when do you buy? Well, it's at maximum negativity. Things can't get worse. And okay, so as far as tech news and all that goes, there was, back when crypto was starting, they said, oh, crypto's a bit of a scam, which it's not. It's a real thing, but it'll work its way through. But the blockchain and these types of things, everybody was blockchain back in like 2019. And that's the wave of the future. And I agree. It's a wonderful function for non-repudiation and others. We've covered that. And then AI comes along and say AI is going to transform the world. And if you look at the top 20 trending tech articles right now, AI is like one of 20. And everything is about, oh, well, Google and Microsoft are trying to refine their use cases so that they can remain competitive. That's different than the talk track that was around like even 3 months ago saying that AI is going to take over the world and replace us all. Now we're trying to settle in and be competitive and find use cases. So what I'm going to posit is now is my time to buy. That is my if I'm Jim Cramer, terrible example because Jim Cramer is kind of funny, whether you like him or hate him. But I mean, it's you honk the horn to say it's buy time, and I think it is buy time for tech right now because we are kind of at this maximum it's not pessimism or something the way the stock market is, but it is this idle
Yeah.
period where we're waiting for the next thing,
Yeah.
because the AI hype cycle seems to be kind of dying. The blockchain hype cycle, before that we had mobile, before that we had, it's web 2.0. Like, it's, if you look at all these hype cycles, I don't know what the next hype cycle is going to be.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping to bring to this. So maybe for the next episode, I'm going to make a prediction as to what
The
the
next
next wave
one.
is going to be. But in the meantime, I do feel like it's buy time. I feel like the companies that survive
Mm-hmm.
this, the companies that emerge with good tech that aligns with just fundamental problem solving, are going to do very well over the next 2 years, because it is buy time. It's time for it to go back up again. Because right now, I feel like we're not at maximum pessimism like the stock market is, but we are at maximum apathy right now for information and technology.
Yeah, and if you pair that with some of the macro stuff, right? I one of the things I read over the weekend was the news. I think it must have been coming out of the States, but the news that this was the first time that we've seen prices go down, right? Some of the consumer price stuff has actually gone down, and the implications around that for interest rates and interest rate changes through the fall and into the winter in a positive direction, which we know also kind of is another macro element for kickstarting investment and kickstarting growth. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Simultaneously, you've got people coming back down to earth, and when I say people, I mean some of the biggest players, right? So whether it's Microsoft, or whether it's Apple, or whether it's Google, or whoever, the biggest sort of blue chip tech companies are coming back down to earth to say, yep, this is all really cool, but let's focus on some specific things, some specific use cases, some specific tools that you can buy to do specific things. I think that's a really grounded and I think to your talk about hype cycles, I think that's what happens with all of the hype cycles, whether it was mobile or cloud, or you know the blockchain stuff, and crypto, and now AI, is that the tech, for all of the hype and excitement, kind of goes through a little bit of a coin sorter, if you know what I mean by the coin sorter. Kids these days don't know what coins are, but used to be these little pieces of money that you would have that would represent 5 cents and 10 cents and 25 cents, and you'd put them into something called a coin sorter, and you'd spin this thing around, and all the quarters would go in one pile, and all the dimes would go in another, and all the nickels would go in another. I think there's something like that happens with tech hype cycles, where there's this thing where people, companies large and small, companies of 10 people, companies of 8,000 people, companies of 40,000 people, get on a hype train, and it all goes into the coin sorter. And then what happens is reality, and the practicality of a market, and what customers are interested in, and what use cases they want, and how much they would like to pay for it. Because I mean, AI is a great example. There are all kinds of incredible AI examples out there that have been trotted out as these world changing, game changing ideas. But what we're not seeing is necessarily organizations willing to pay the dollars associated with some of those incredible, the promise of some of those incredible outcomes. Instead, we're seeing a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of people wanting to get their feet wet a little bit. Let me spend a little bit of money to try it out. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. I don't think we will know quite how long this will take. I think are we in a phase right now that's going to be another 6 months like this? Is it going to be 18 or 24? I get the sense that it's not going to be 18 or 24. I really feel like, so what are we now in? We're in July. I feel like, by US Thanksgiving in November, there's going to be a very real set of practical use cases that are going to be out there and well defined, partially defined by the big players, and people are going to start to exercise those interests, and they're going to speak with their wallets, right? So yeah,
Yeah, and it's going to be masked by the reduction in interest rates, which is going to make it confusing
totally.
because it'll be unclear: is it the use cases that prevailed, or is it just the freeing of
Yeah,
money? And I often think about this, and I don't want to introduce a new topic, but it's something that I'm very aware of. It's like the only way that new money gets printed in at least the United States and Canada is generally through new mortgages.
right.
So, and it's implied that the newest mortgages are for new property. So that's how this durable asset, instead of backing money with gold, we back it
Real estate.
with property. Now, yeah, exactly, and that's how you inject money in. But I mean, if you think that, like, I mean, how much of the American economy? It's got to be at least 50% of the American economy now is like intangible goods. It's intellectual property and all that kind of stuff. But other than the treasury from the company
Mm-hmm.
itself, there's no actual fiat currency being printed against
Right.
that. So it is you're paying real fiat currency for this new intellectual property and all that. And what I'm getting at is that the economic system is still built based upon oil barons back in the 20s. So it's hard to really tell how this information economy, how the real economy drives growth in that type of thing, because interest rates and the availability of money is so directly tied to the old world of a tangible asset and these types
Yeah.
of things. So anyway, short story long is, yeah, I called that interest rates would be halved by January of 2025. It's going to happen in Canada. United States will lag behind, which means their economy is going to like slow to stagnate if they don't act
Mm-hmm.
quicker. But short story long is, if they get ahead of it,
Mm-hmm.
or if they catch up to it with interest rate reductions, then we're going to have a bit of a. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a boom, but a recovery
Yeah.
is. I agree. It doesn't feel like it's going to be 18 to 24 months of
No.
anguish. It's going to
Right.
be, before the end of the year, we'll be back on a slope that's upward
It
trajectory.
feels like, and I really keyed into your kind of chicken and egg uh, piece about the masking or kind of lack of clarity around, is this because something magical happened with the tech that allowed it to accelerate, or is it simply the freeing up of money and that kind of thing? And I think it's more the freeing up of money than it is the tech, because I don't
Yeah,
think that I think that what's happening right now, especially if you look at the Microsofts and the Googles, I think that what they're doing is fine tuning a lot of messaging, fine tuning use cases, building up all of the kind of go to market stuff and all of the collateral that you would normally expect to see with any new set of capabilities and products. But is it appreciably different tech by November of 2024? I don't think it's appreciably different tech by November of 2024. I think that it's the refinement of the messaging, the clarity of the messaging, combined with interest rates going in the right direction and money becoming more available for people, hopefully leading to a recovery of sorts, that is going to make this feel like it's taking off. But it's not really because of some magical new tech that's been developed between July and November. You know,
yeah. It's if you look at, again, back to the headline news, and I
yeah,
couldn't pick out any that I was particularly interested in. But what you see right now is just the
yeah,
consolidation. The biggest headlines right now
yeah,
are such and such stock split, such and such purchasing so and so for
right,
$20 billion. Like, it's just consolidation. That's what makes a Microsoft or a Google interesting right now, is because their big innovation of the AI is fine. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
yeah,
pooping
yeah,
on it. I think it's very cool, and it's heading in a good direction, and we can all use it for some positivity. But I mean, it didn't blow us away the way that people were talking about it 2 years ago. So now we're back to good old market
yeah,
consolidation and trying to buy out features from somebody else to
yeah.
monetize them.
Yeah, and that's okay, because I feel like that's that's the cycle of all of these. All of the phases that we talked about, and all of the kind of hot new things that you mentioned off the top, all went through that, and that's the hype cycle. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like when you think there's only how many big brands are there for mobile
right.
phones? There's like I mean, there's a billion brands,
Yeah,
but there's only like four big ones. And yeah, like every tech has its couple of monsters, and
yeah,
then a bunch of a long tail of
yeah,
others. And I feel like that's just where we're headed, of course,
yeah.
with AI and this type of thing. What do you got for us this week,
Well,
Davey?
before we leave that, I feel like I need to say that the perennial, you were like, well, I don't know what it's going to be after AI. I feel like the perennial one that we can just say forever and ever until you and I have left this earth is quantum computing. I feel like it's got
Yeah,
to be. It's one of these things that's just perennially over the horizon, right? At least in terms of everyday practical computing.
well, you did it too, in the sense like I got a physics degree back in like
Right.
1998, or an honor science degree specializing in physics and computer science or whatever. Anyway, let's be specific if anybody looks that
Yeah.
up. But anyway, it, it's like the quantum computer, fantastic, and it's not that it is magic. It's not magic. It is just it allows you to do additional algorithms
Hmm.
that that break the limitations of our current
Generation.
on off
Yeah.
binary
Yeah.
digital. Like it's the reason why it's good is because the on off binary digital calculations that we do right now have limitations, and some things that we do like encryption exploit those
Yeah.
limitations, whereas the quantum computer allows shortcuts. It's not magic. It's not like it's like, oh, it's like having an infinite number of bits. No, that's BS. It's not. It has algorithms like Shor's algorithms that allows you to shortcut a couple of the tricks that our existing computers have, and it will be powerful. And I do feel like obviously it's governments and stuff like that probably already have them, or they will have them shortly. uh, I don't know how many years it's going to be. It feels like it's 20 or 30 years before we have the quantum coprocessor, the same way that you have a floating
Right.
point coprocessor that came along with your
Yeah.
386 or your 486. Had a floating point chip that came along with it, and that was revolutionary. I do feel like there's going to be a quantum chip that comes along with it in 20 or 30 years
Yeah.
that does allow for some of these multi-state processing uh, things that will allow for some faster computation. So yeah, it'll be cool. It's good. It's going to completely undo a lot of what the internet looks like
Big
today.
time.
But I just feel like it's not going to descend on us like mobile phones did, where everybody's like, "Holy crap! I need a quantum coprocessor so that
Right.
I can use Shor's algorithm to break your encryption." It's like I don't
Yeah.
know what the use case is, quite frankly.
I'm optimistic about. I mean, based on some of the reading I've done, I'm optimistic about what the implications are for the security that we all used to think that we have. The security that we all used to believe that we had in our banking system, in our online purchasing systems, in our like all of these things that we used to kind of assume were safe-ish, that I don't think any of us truly believe are safe anymore. I'm excited about the infrastructure gradually being swapped out in the background. So not anything that you or I would go buy, not anything that we would rush out to the store and buy, but rather in the same way that they're redoing the sewers on in our neighborhood, because the sewers in my neighborhood right now are 75 years old or something. In the same way that we're getting new sewers in our neighborhood, I'm optimistic about the gradual rollout of quantum computing underneath the things that we all rely on, including like our power grid and our, all of the things that you want to be safe and secure and reliable and performant, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it will be a bit of a Y2K moment.
Yeah.
It will be one of those things that once it's available, you're kind of okay. If you haven't yet done your Y2K work, you're probably in
Right.
trouble. Like your business is in trouble. Remember how much hype there was
Yeah,
around
big
that,
time.
and in that case, it was real.
Yeah.
Like I mean, that was, and I wasn't specifically worried about airplanes falling from the sky or whatever, but the idea of an elevator not knowing what to do was very
Yeah.
real. So, in banking for
Yeah.
sure, absolutely, it was very real that transactions would start to fail already. Like there was just something in the news last week about there's an individual who was over 100 years old that their bank transactions started to fail because it didn't, it assumed that they were 1 year old instead of 101 years old,
Hmm.
and so they couldn't apply for the, anyway, there was some weird stuff
Sure.
happening. I forget the exact story, but yeah, I feel like with quantum it's going to be the same kind
Right.
of thing where we will quickly identify, okay, here's all the infrastructure things that have to change, here's all the old libraries that we used that we shared, here's all this, the hardware that needs to be updated, and it'll be this gold rush moment to try to make sure that we're all quantum safe
Yeah.
and exploiting content from quantum instead of being exploited by
Right.
it. Uh, yeah. However, it's I'm gonna back away from it a bit, saying I just don't feel it right now. I don't feel like it's coming in 2 years and it'll blindside us.
I think you're on to the exact. I think you're exactly right, and I think that for Joe Blow, it'll be invisible to them. Hopefully, it'll be in the same
Yeah.
way that the city is updating my sewer, and I don't know. I guess my water will still come to my house, and it'll still be clean. It'll still be reliable. But in the background, they've clearly put something newer and better there. So
Mhm.
it still results in hot and cold water coming into my house, and my toilet's working or something. So yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, and ultimately, that's kind of a weakness in the entire process, is that the consumer is ignorant,
right,
and by design, it's people providing the service want an ignorant consumer to just swipe their credit card every
right,
month. And that if you were choiceful, if you knew the environmental impact, if you knew
yeah,
the profit that was in what's being delivered to you and all this kind of stuff, then you would demand something different.
yeah.
And God help us all if we have educated
Yeah,
consumers.
can't have that.
Like you know what I mean?
Can't have.
Like it's, imagine the economy. Imagine how strong the economy would be and how reliable products would be if we had educated consumers. What a nightmare!
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a very, very focused consumer in the areas that interest me, and in the areas that don't interest me, I'm not. Which I think is
Yeah,
actually
price.
pretty common for people. They're very discerning about the fancy stereo that they want. Their car is a good example. I'm going to be very, very focused and interested in this car, but when it comes to picking a new furnace, I'm going to say to the furnace guy, I don't know which one looks good. Okay, that looks good. Give me my furnace.
Yeah, the wine bottle metaphor is that the furnace guy comes in with the, well, you can have the Powerinator for $25,000, or you can have the cheapinator for 3,000, or you can have the $10,000 one with the 10-year
Right.
warranty.
And everybody's
So
picking
the
the
only way they can get you to buy the 10 grand one is to put a $25,000 one
right.
beside it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, 10 grand seems like a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's classic.
So I do have a topic that actually kind of stretches back into, kind of old school IM, but I also, it's something that honestly, as I look back over the course of my career, and of course, you and I have had a parallel career to many degrees. We've both been working in this for a very long time. In terms of helping customers and people all over the world with their with the management of their data and content, and I'm also simultaneously thinking a lot about impermanence. I've been maybe watching too many Disney Star Wars shows, and I've been thinking too much about the Jedi and all these things. But the impermanence of things. It got me thinking about um ephemeral content, ephemeral data, and data that is and content that is not permanent by design. It's not meant to be there forever. And obviously, there's some very big and blatant examples that people are probably familiar with. That things like messages that self destruct. That's actually not really what I'm that interested in. because I think those are kind of more obvious where it's like, well, I'm going to create an Instagram reel or an Instagram thing that's going to be good for 24 hours and then it's not going to be available anymore. It just disappears into wherever. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about the work that any organization does to get to the output, the kind of classic grade 5 math class thing where the teacher really is going to grade you not just on whether you got the problem, whether you solved the problem correctly, but the whole show me your work, right? What are the things that you did in this problem to get the correct answer? Well, in any organization that works together and collaborates on content or collaborates on outcomes, there's all kinds of work that produces documents and Teams meetings and web chats and whiteboard diagrams and all these things that go into making the thing at the end, which typically would show up in a SharePoint or in a content management system of some sort. It's all the work in progress stuff that I'm interested in. And the reason why I bring this up and the reason why I want to talk about it is right now, Shiny Docs, when we work with our customers, we don't specifically look for that stuff as its own category. We can find all of it. Of course, we can find all of your draft Word documents and all of your draft, text documents or anything like that. We can find all that stuff. But from our perspective, it's created kind of equally to the final thing, to the Word document at the end of it. The classic, project plan dash final, dot doc, or project plan dash final two dot doc, final three. And what I want to ask your view on, Jason, because I have my own view of it, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it. Aside, take legal discovery out of this story. Forget that that's even a thing. Should any organization be hanging on to any of that stuff, or is it just literally refuse that you can get rid of when you don't need it anymore? Because there's an awful lot of that stuff.
There is an awful lot of that stuff, and it is. I'm gonna even so. You started at a start line that to me is, I'm gonna say, 30% into the game. So I'm gonna go all the
Yeah.
way back to the start line, and I'm gonna use it. And I think we've talked about this before. What I'm gonna call the engineering mindset.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an engineer, you don't just start building the bridge. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you could do it like any engineer, or like anybody who is mechanically inclined could go and over engineer a bridge, and it would cost more, and it would be whatever, and it would probably be very safe if you let the engineer over engineer it to just way over spec to make sure they got it done right. That's not how the universe works. Generally, the universe works in the say it's like, okay, here's my budget. Um, can we get there with the budget, or what I
And the
mean? Like, it's
time
just
that we've got.
we got to work up to what we need. So when you're building the bridge, so it's like, what's the minimal amount of steel we can put in there? What's the minimal amount of concrete? Is there other alternate materials and designs that we can use to save on this and still have a safe outcome? So you work up to that. And that engineering mindset has never existed, at least for the software as we're talking
Yeah.
about it. So, and definitely not, no offense to teams and all this kind of stuff. They don't give a hoot about any of this crap. So, when you look at like NASA and hopefully other space exploration companies, where they have a very engineering mindset when it comes to every line of code. This is how you need to error handle. This is how you need to verify. This is how you need to do these things. So there should be information management, information governance by design. So when you start building the database that's going to store the stuff that eventually accumulates to be the record that supports the transaction that may be called into a court of law, or if somebody gets injured, then you can recall all this information. Those links need to be in the original design of the database. like, okay, how long do we need to keep this? And how is it connected with this other stuff? And under what rules can we delete it? Imagine if that was in every database that was ever created, in every spreadsheet that
Right.
was ever created. We would have a completely different universe than what we live in right now. But unfortunately, it is completely the Wild West. It is completely the Wild West as far as anybody can just make a spreadsheet to support whatever they want. They just start, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying this is the reality. And what you end up with is this, information soup
Yeah.
where it's really hard to tell where the record starts and where the ephemera ends.
Big time.
So, what I'm going to say is unfortunately, you do need to keep the ephemera because of that ambiguity.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there is a performance tipping point by which the ephemera can obviously fall off. And I think that's the engineering mindset that needs to be applied here is under no circumstances can you get rid of the ephemera, because if you build the bridge and then it collapses, you need to see all of the collaboration that happened. Who made a decision at one point? You can't trust humans to do anything other than lie and advocate on their own behalf. So you need to go back to the details and data. And so that ephemera needs to come along for the ride. But once the transaction has been shown to be durable, and I think it's usually time based. I mean, we built the bridge, and for the first 3 years, it keep passing its engineering test, or we did the financial transaction, and for the first 2 years, nobody's questioned it, seems durable. Then all of a sudden, the ephemera should be able to fall off. I think that's the piece that perhaps maybe we should introduce as part of ours, and say that because of this ambiguity, you just can't get rid of the ephemera. If we start saying to people, oh, you can because you better understand it with Shiny Docs, I don't think that'll convince them. They're like, yeah, but I don't trust you, Davey. Love you, but I don't trust you. So I think we need to just step back and say, okay, for the transaction that we're supporting, for the build of the asset, for the financial transaction, for the matter, the legal matter, whatever it is that we're supporting, what is the tipping point at which it has been shown to be durable over time? And for a legal matter, it's like, I mean, obviously there's some long story arcs out there, but I think for your typical legal matter, it should be, like a year from initial resolution. That might be a long enough time to identify that, chats and teams can then go away and these types of things, because you have the lion's share of the actual transactional information, and the disclosures should always be there and these types of things, but the ephemera that goes along with it. So if we have these rules, and I think we kind of do, we do have these rules as far as when the ephemera can go away based upon the durability. The real trick is that there's nothing that brings it all together. We've never had the engineering mindset to say which is the ephemera, which isn't, and that. So for us to be able to post hoc introduce that, I think is quite powerful. The ability to just say, okay, here's everything that supports this transaction or this asset, and here's the tipping point, here's the cliff that it falls off of with respect to when the ephemera doesn't matter. And then Shiny Docs is going to jump in and just tell you, here's the report that says, here's the ephemera we're deleting, and here's why. Off it goes. I love it. I think people would love it. I think they would trust it, because it does check that box as far as, I mean, it's a 3-year-old matter, and it's been undisputed for 3 years. Fine. Chats can fall away then.
Yeah, I think that that's something that's missing right now, because everybody's kind of, I don't want to say fumbling in the dark, but new capabilities and new tech, like Teams is a great example, because I think it's so web chats and meeting chats, whether it's Teams or Zoom, have kind of really rapidly become one of the main ways that people engage with one another professionally, really since COVID, right? And I would lump things like Slack messages in there, and Slack channel type activities, and the fact that there isn't really a lot of clear direction out there is confusing for people. and it's leading them to unfortunately choose the easy thing, which is either to do nothing or to keep everything forever. Which, again, from our perspective, doesn't you're not you might as well do nothing if you're just going to keep everything forever. It equates to the nearly the same thing, and I think what we're trying to say is that there is this middle ground. What I'm going to reintroduce the legal discovery side of it now and say, okay, well, we do live in a world with legal discovery where at times you're going to be asked to produce you're going to be asked to produce things. What we've seen certainly in the West and certainly Canada, US, is court decisions that really have more to do with, do you have a program and plan for this data? Yes, no. If you do have a plan for this data, are you executing upon it in a consistent and reliable way? Yes, no. And if you can answer yes to both of those things, yes, we have a plan for it, and yes, we're executing on it in a consistent and reliable way, we've seen time and time again that a lot of courts are actually okay with that. In the absence of, kind of a direct, you must keep this for 6 years, you must keep this for 5 years, whatever it is, they want to see that you have a plan, that you're adhering to it, and that the plan is a reasonable one. And that's why you can also bring in, I think what organizations can and should be doing is, developing their plan, getting some kind of external validation, get auditors, get Ernst and Young, get people like that to come in and say, yeah, you know what, if you guys do this, this is a good plan. We can all live with this. You get that little checkbox, and then you just do the thing. Yeah, it's coming up again and again. I'm finding where, the easy, I don't want to say the easy stuff, but it is kind of the easy stuff. The final copies of things, the records themselves, the final invoice, the final report, the PDF, managing that stuff's actually a breeze. But that stuff is also in the minority of, by file size, by data size. That stuff is actually in the minority compared to the work and research and ephemeral stuff that went into producing the final thing. And so it's the all of the work and all of the ephemera that is actually causing all of the bloat, causing all of the cost, causing all of the rest. And yeah, I think kind of becoming more um, attuned to that and becoming more aware of that is essential. Now, I'm kind of calling ourselves on the carpet a little bit here too, because all of the stuff that we're talking about here is stuff that we wouldn't necessarily tag as redundant, obsolete, and trivial, right? So we have these incredible tools and out of the box capabilities to fly through all of your data, no matter where it lives, and identify things that are redundant, obsolete, and trivial. A lot of this is stuff that wouldn't necessarily meet that criteria by our definitions. So I think that we're talking about this other category of kind of ephemera or work in progress data or research or whatever, that's to us, to Shiny Docs, looks like a Word doc or it looks like a Teams meeting, but that probably doesn't need to be kept forever. So
Yeah, it's because what you're describing is something that I think it's going to take somebody like yourself, Davey, and maybe companies like Shiny Docs like us, uh, to just posit the here's the new standard, here's the new way by which you do it. Because it's like shout out to our friend of the show and past president of ARMA, Dave
yep,
McDermott. Like he was always really clear about the fact that when you go to testify about the information that you have, the judge or magistrate or whatever never asks you, was it stored in X? They don't care. What they say is, was it managed according to policy and
yep,
law? And as long as it was, you say yes to that, then you're good. As long as you can demonstrate that, then you're good. So, the thing that's always been missing is the playbook. This is how you actually figure out what was the the work in progress piece. This is how you figure out what the de facto record is. And because like you say, it's managing the de facto record is actually overkill. It's over
mm-hmm,
engineered because we still engineer it the same way as if we think it was in boxes. That's how all the standards are just translating box thinking into
yeah,
digital, which is dumb. So no offense to the standards, but I mean, they need a massive facelift based upon the fact that like people like us can find anything anywhere at any time with a minimal set of metadata. So why the hell do we need to do all this manual work to do anything with anything? It's just silly. It's way expensive for zero
Yeah.
gain. So short story long is if we came up with a playbook by which here's things that get coin sorted into the dime bin are the records.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I value tiny space. I value tiny space, dimes, and all the other things that have massive weight,
Mm-hmm.
and they still have some value, but they have massive weight. You can offload dishes of
Pennies and nickels.
these
Yeah.
yeah, these things that you just don't need anymore. And you save the money associated with them, and you manage it according to policy and law, the way that Dave McDermott would
Yeah.
describe it. So that's the thing. It's not just the software doing the work. Obviously, we can do the work. It's a matter of having a playbook that somebody can read and go, "Holy crap, this is actually a way better way of doing
Mm-hmm.
it," and it saves us a ton of energy and effort, and we trust it. If we can check those boxes, then boom, win.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even thinking about how, from a classification perspective, we could get smart about classifying work in progress data, ephemeral data, um, because once it's classified or tagged, for lack of a better, for a for a less technical term, once it's tagged as being work in progress data or ephemeral data, you can have a whole bunch of other behaviors rely on that tagging. And I'm not even talking about classic sort of records management things. I mean, search can change as a result of that. You can have a different kind of uh, experience for the users of your system who are looking for things. Because you and I have talked at length about how the real reason for any of this stuff is to help people do their jobs better and find what they're looking for faster and more effectively. So, you know, why would I want, unless I'm unless I'm deliberately looking for work in progress data, why would I want to weed through any of that stuff when I'm really just looking for the real, I want the final contract that we signed with X or Y customer. That's all I want. I don't want to read through the 75 Word doc drafts that it took to get us to that final contract, you know?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, this is almost a brand new topic because it's something that sadly the people that phone us to help them with their records and content, they're not even aware that this is a
Yeah.
thing. We've only lucked into it with our customers, and that like it's if you watch our cool municipal video
Right.
with Anthony and Gordon. It's Anthony, a policy
Yeah.
guy, and Gordon, the deputy fire
I kind of
chief.
know.
Neither one of them want to use a record system for anything. They're like, screw that. They just phone the clerk and say, I need this. Go get me this piece of paper. Go get me this piece of
Right.
information. And then the clerk has to run around and get it. But if you use Shiny Docs, now they get it and they love
Mm-hmm.
it because they find exactly what they need and it's already pre-classified as the de facto copy. And like they love it and brag about it, but nobody even knows to service them.
Right.
So yeah, it's a funny situation where nobody's even asking to help people do that because they're so focused on where do I put the document
Right. Right.
and how do I make sure I keep it or demonstrate that I'm keeping it, that they forget that there's actually the other 99% of your company out there that needs to get this stuff without your
Yeah.
help, and that's the most important thing. So that's it's anyway. I know it's almost a new
It is,
topic
but
because
I
it
love the way
diverged.
that that happens as usual. See, look at that. We can
Yeah,
turn one into many. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
Love it.
sure. Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
discussion, Davey. It's yeah, and it gets me thinking about because it's yeah when you have these base capabilities within your system
Mm-hmm.
to do the this coin sorter type of thing electronically at massive scale, like literally
Mm-hmm.
millions and billions of documents.
Right.
The outcome is all that matters.
Yeah.
You can't sell people a coin taker. You need to sell people on having sorted coins. It's different.
Well, anybody who's ever cracked open a piggy bank full of coins, for people who are old enough to remember coins and piggy banks, knows that it's no fun to sit there and go, oh, that's a penny. Oh, there's another penny. Oh, there's a dime. Instead, somebody had the genius idea to make a little machine with different sized holes in them, and dump all your coins
Yeah.
in. And I think they used to have cranks. I think I had one as a kid that was a crank, which was kind of cool.
That is fun. Yeah, the shaky, real life
The
shaky
shaky
one, but
ones, and
it's
then I think there were
yeah,
electric ones at one point that ran on a battery. Yeah,
yeah. I'm an ADHD kid though, so a nice complete taxonomy really that turns me
yeah.
on. So I never minded the
Oh
sorting.
yeah,
So
laying
take
it all out on the carpet and going dimes, and
chaos and turning that into organization. Oh, geez, that's
that
just heaven.
scratches you right where you itch. Eh? Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
satisfying even thinking
yeah.
about it.
Well, this was a good chat. I
All
appreciate
right.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. Thanks, Davey. What do you think, Steve?
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, no problem. Good conversation, guys. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Awesome. Great. Take care,
Thanks.
everyone.
Enterprise Intelligence is a Shiny Docs podcast with Jason Cassidy and Davey Slimmin, produced by Steven Schuntz. Copyright 2024. If you would like to learn more about how Shiny Docs can make it easy to organize your content, protect your data, and make your users happy, visit shinydocs.com today.